Hi, and welcome to another terribly fun films review. I'm your host, Bobby, and today we're looking at the movie Ninja Apocalypse, which combines Walter Hill's The Warriors with Dredd / The Raid, whichever one you prefer. I love both those films. And post-apocalyptic magic-using ninjas into one film. If that doesn't sell you on the ridiculousness and awesomeness of this film, I don't know if the rest of the review will help. So, without further ado, let's see why Ninja Apocalypse is so terribly fun. As mentioned in the intro, the plot really is just the warriors, but instead of escaping through a city, they need to escape out of one tower. It's actually an underground bunker, but it goes for several floors. In the future, the moon has crashed, the world has crumbled, and now there are magic-using ninja clans scattered throughout the lands. Each clan has different abilities. Some can use electricity, fire, some can duplicate themselves, that kind of thing. The Grand Master calls all the clans together in kind of a peace summit in order to work out a truce so that the clans just aren't battling themselves amongst petty squabbles and are actually trying to further their agenda, get on with remaking society, that sort of thing. Whilst at this peace summit, the Grandmaster is killed, and everybody blames one particular clan. The Lost Clan is what they're called. If this is sounding like the Warriors, remember what I said. It's the Warriors. However, this peace summit is taking place in like an abandoned missile silo or something like that. So there are several floors underground, which means instead of fighting through the city, they're fighting up, out, so they can get out to where the car's waiting for them and get back home. Once the Grandmaster has been killed, they go to the very bottom, meet some zombie-like ninja creatures, and have to fight several other clans to prove their innocence and make it out alive. So yeah, it's Dredd / The Raid with the Warriors. I'm done saying that now, I promise. But does that make it bad? No, actually. The script from Ashley Scott Myers is fairly fun. It doesn't take itself that seriously, and it's not too exposition heavy. Which means a lot of things we have to either figure out for ourselves or just accept can happen. Like them using magic. It's never really explained where the magic came from or how, since it's inferred that this is meant to be our world before the apocalypse happened, and then after the apocalypse, magic happened. I don't totally get that, but hey. Her dialogue, though, is a little iffier. There are times where it does sound fairly natural, but it does feel like maybe trying too hard to get a quip or something like that in there. That's a bit frustrating. The directing from Lloyd Lee Burnett is really good. Keeps things moving fairly well. The fight choreography and the way it's filmed is excellent. There's nothing that's too close or too shaky or anything like that. So you can always tell what's happening, even when they're using their magic, shooting off fireballs, lightning, whatever it is they're doing. You can always see all the action going on, with some exceptions where you're not meant to know everything happening, and then in flashbacks you get revealed what happens. The cast sees Christian Oliver play Cage, who is the leader of the Lost Clan for purposes of the Peace Summit, and he's good. Not exceptional, but he can hold the more dramatic scenes fairly well, and he does amazingly in the action. However, his sort of funny, witty rapport with his clan members early on He doesn't do that so well, sadly. Les Brandt plays Surge, who is another one of the Lost Clan members, and he yells a lot. He doesn't think they should have gone to the peace summit to begin with. He kind of figured it was a trap of some sort. He was correct, so he's angry, and there's really nothing more to him. He's a little bit boring in that regard. The actor doesn't really do much with it, sadly. The Grandmaster is played by Kari Hirooka Tagawa, who's had an illustrious, long career, and he's the sort of person you want in that role. You want somebody you can just immediately recognize, and if you don't know his name, you've seen him in several hundred films. You want somebody you can just recognize and who can command the screen with the sort of presence necessary that makes you believe every other clan would respect and obey this person. Playing his right-hand man, Hariyoshi, is Ernie Reyes Jr., who, if you guys remember, had a fairly big surge of fame in the 90s for movies like Surf Ninjas and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze, along with others, and it's always fun to watch him. His character is really interesting to see played out, and the way he plays his character is deceptively simple at first. And once more things get revealed and that kind of thing, it becomes more engaging. And I think he does that duplicitous angle very well. As the mute, hulking giant Sky, Isaac C. Singleton Jr. That's a very hard name to say really fast. Sorry about that. Is really good. He doesn't say a single word that I can recall. But he does a lot of emoting and conveying of things through his facial expressions and body gestures. And he's really good with that. And of course, he's awesome in the action scenes. Playing the only female Lost Clan member at the summit, Mar, Tara Mackin probably gives my favorite performance in the film. And she's a fun combination of funny. She's really good with the one-liners and the quick, off-the-cuff type stuff. She's really good in the dramatic roles. She's excellent in the action sequences. I think if she and Krishna Alvarez switched places and she was the leader of the gang, the movie might work a little bit better on an emotional level than it currently does. Not that it doesn't work, it's just not quite as impactful as it should be. Then we have Annette Kalje as the Siren Clan. And I mean the entire Siren Clan. They're one female ninja clan, and they do just what their name implies. Siren. They lure people in with false hope and false promise only to try to kill them. And she's fairly good and enjoyable. I wish that character had a bit more to do. Despite her obvious and interesting abilities they were in the script, they only used the character for one sequence. And I think that they could have spread the sirens out and maybe more secretively taken out members of the Lost Clan or something. That's a little bit of a limit. But she's good. She is the right combination of alluring and intense, and you can see why the members of other clans would be drawn to her. And then once the attack happens, you totally believe it. She does all that fairly well. Tim Montahijo's score is fairly good. There are a few times where it just doesn't quite fit what we're watching. I think mainly in the beginning it's too fantasy oriented. It doesn't sound enough like the setting that we're seeing. But when the action happens and the bulk of the plot starts kicking into high gear, it's really fast paced, it's really fun, and it's very solid, interesting score. Ashish Gandhi's cinematography is for the most part good. Some of the problems I have with cinematography cannot be laid out at Gandhi's feet because they're not really his her, I don't know, his or her fault. The things that they could control are mostly good. There are some times where certain things are too washed out to be seen properly, and in the basement with the ninja zombie things you heard me mention earlier, it's a little too dark, which is also a lighting issue, but it's also a cinematography issue, because if your camera can't pick that up, you should tell the lighter and the director, hey, we need to adjust things. The other issue are the matte paintings we see early on in the film before we enter the bunker. They're horrendous looking. They're CGI god-awfulness. They are bad enough to actually be humorous, thank God, but like where they cut off is so obvious, and the fact that they're not in the same location. You know, you do your practical shooting, you cover this up with a green screen, you paint it all in using a computer. It's so ridiculously obvious where that cutoff point is. It's so ridiculously obvious that they didn't have the proper budget to really go whole hog there, which makes me question, why be that ambitious? It's really awkward and weird, and it does bring the cinematography down a few notches, even though it's a special effects issue, because they incorporate it into the look of the film. And it's very goofy and awkward to see. Max Carlson's editing is mostly really good. Once again, the fight sequences are easy to follow and don't get too chaotic or hectic, which is nice. And then during the more talkative scenes, nothing ever gets too crazy in that regard. You can always follow who says what, where, yada yada. Sadly, the movie's biggest issue, even bigger than the poor CGI, which even the special effects, the magic they use, and that sort of thing, are CGI. And they're obvious and fake. They don't look like they're actually coming from the hands of the people doing them. But I'm okay with that. Again, it looks goofy and is fairly amusing to watch. But I also like the ambition that this presents. The filmmakers wanted to accomplish X. They couldn't quite, but they at least still tried, which is nice. Sadly, the set and art direction is abysmal. There's really nothing to it. It's very bland sets. It's very boring. And after the way too ambitious matte painting sequences to make the world look the way they intended it to look after this apocalypse thing that introduced magic and ninja clans and whatever else, it's really disheartening to see that they got, I don't know if they got lazy or if they ran out of time or what, but there's not a single interesting, engaging set at all. Everything looks very boring or standard or cliche depending on where we are. The bottom of the bunker has cages and some generators, and it's like something you'd see on The Walking Dead or Z Nation, and it's very boring. And the sequence with the sirens is in this sort of lounge area, bar type place, I guess, but they don't really do anything with it. It's a bit more colorful than the other sequences, but aside from that, there's nothing that makes it stand out in terms of what's there, in terms of small details for world building and that kind of thing. And given that clearly they put so much detail into it for special effects and cinematography, it's really sad that they couldn't do that same thing. And it does bring the movie down a little bit. And not in a humorous way like the special effects and CGI. Not in a silly way like some of the actors. But in an actual, oof, that actually hurts way. And of course, in an action film, we should talk about the action. You've heard me repeat repeatedly, the action's well filmed, easy to follow, and it is. It's also very exciting. Knowing that this is a Dredd meets the Warriors type thing, you could probably figure out the plot fairly easily. There aren't too many surprises, if any at all. But one is still invested because the characters are fairly well sketched out, and because the action is really good. The action is the movie's strongest suit. The action looks great. The action is quick. The action is exciting. It's fairly varied. It's not just punch, kick, yada yada. They use their magic a few times. They do different types of martial artists. Each character is specialized in something, and that gets shown off. So it never drags, it never gets boring, and at like 85 minutes or whatever, the movie's never dull. 5 minutes of exposition, Grandmaster's killed, bam, fight, 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 fight. Maybe 2-minute talking scene here, fight, fight, fight. 2-minute talking scene here, fight, end fight. That's basically the film. And happily, the action is great. The action moves quickly, the action looks good. Even though the movie has some legitimate issues in art and production design, and some of the acting isn't the best. The acting can be amusing at least, and you can see what they're going for, and the special effects are just hilarious. They really add a level of enjoyment to the film. Even if it's unintended, unintentional enjoyment, it's still there. And I love The Warriors. I love The Raid. I love Dredd. So why not watch something that's a weird combination of those? Because it's enjoyable, the action's good, and it is different enough to warrant its own existence. If you're in the mood for something ridiculous and cheesy with ninjas and magic, you can certainly do much worse. Ninja assassin. This is fun, it's goofy, it's kind of crazy, and I think that's why everybody will enjoy it. As always, thank you for watching. I've been your host, Bobby, and I'll see you next time.